back to another episode. We don't know how else to start this thing other than telling you. So the F.A.F.O podcast. Just friends around finding out. I think we've essentially turned into a conspiracy podcast after the way the last episode went. And
Was it that strong?
It got a better response than I expected. We're still early in the game. You know, we're not quite overseas popular again yet. Remember, we used to be kind of big in the UK area. We were kind of a big deal.
Rodeo, and we chose to get off the horse. We didn't get bucked.
That's true. We just need a break for a little bit. We were a little sore.
A little bit. 5 years.
Now we're calloused and ready.
5 years.
But now we're ready to go. So we'll just set the stage for the episode that you guys know a couple things that we're going to talk about. So I think there's an interesting concept that I'm labeling, you find the truth that you're looking for.
Okay.
So if you want evidence to back up something that you believe, are you going to search for the opposite of that to see if anything disproves it? Yes. So we're obviously going to talk about the Chiefs because everyone hates the Chiefs right now and thinks that the NFL is basically conspired to make it where they always win. Okay. Which is the evidence that people are looking for because everyone hates the person who's on top. And the second topic is actually, there was a guy on TikTok that posted a video. It went pretty viral. He went to a chiropractor at the joint and got messed up and was sent to the hospital. Like it's a intense story. But the problem is on the video, when you click on a video, it's like whatever the title is or the little font that I put on there, whatever I write, like that's going to grab you. And it's like, do not go to a chiropractor. This is the overarching, and then those are like the two main that can, and we'll see where it goes from there.
All right, so the first one that you mentioned is finding the truth you're looking for.
Yeah.
Okay. So give me an example of what.
So I think if you're like, I wonder if drinking coffee is bad for you, then I'm going to search that, and I'm going to probably find some information because we're in such an age where there's so much information out there. You could probably find information that says it's bad. As a avid coffee lover, guess what's the information I love and find? The research that says you live longer. It's better for you. I, of course, am naturally going to gravitate towards that because I love it. So don't tell me the things that would make me want to give it up. Mm-hmm. Tell me the things that back up the belief that I already would like to have.
So on those things, for sure, right? Like, I want to buy this kind of car. Like I could convince myself.
That one can be a little bit easier because you might not necessarily be so attached, but you're just like.
Well, you could also become dismissive when you hear the bad stuff.
That's true.
Right? So you're like, whatever.
Because the car example is a perfect thing for me. Like if I'm looking to branch from what I would typically pick, I have a person. So I talk to you and I'm like, hey, is there anything about this type of car that I should sort of look out for that's like, and you're like, dude, those things are within 4 years, they're typically this, you're going to have to replace these. They don't do a good job. And it's like, oh, now I have information because you're the person who knows.
Right.
So it's.
But you're also taking that as fact at that point, and you would choose whether to believe me or not based on the information you're looking for.
And that's the thing is maybe there could be even a little bit further depth to this of like, who do you let influence you when you're making these decisions? Because I think, let's take the political standpoint on this. If you hate Trump, you can find things to hate about him. If you love him, you will disregard anything that could be true that makes people hate him and just be like, yeah, but I like him. If you hate Biden, you'll find reasons. But if you like him, you'll dismiss the reasons that would tell us that he's barely even been awake while he's been running our country.
I don't know. I think that's fairly normal. I think where this takes an interesting turn is with these different algorithms from a marketing aspect, right? Because I think these algorithms are figuring out what tone we need to hear it in and see it in. And not only are they feeding the content, they're also giving you an opportunity to buy.
It's true.
Right? So while we're sitting here trying to figure out, like, is this a thing? Is this possible? Yeah, we think it might be.
They're going to give you what you want.
They've been doing this for 20 plus years. And I think it started with the grocery stores with the frequent buyer cards. And we pretty much told them what our buying behaviors are through a quick scan and associating with our card. Now, early on, they might not have sent us specific coupons or deals associated to that, but what they stock in the store, how they do it, when they do it, what frequency, I'm sure all that analytics comes into play.
When you start to learn about where certain things go on shelves, because it's like, oh, that's naturally what you're going to pick.
There's visual, there's aesthetic, there's who's the target, kids stuff is down low, adult stuff is up high.
Oh, there's a big, there's tons of things that we don't know, which is like, I expect that. I think actually being curious is a great thing. So to be curious allows me to be open to the potential that I'm wrong and that I could change my opinion. But I feel like I've learned as you get older, run a business longer, have kids, as you go through things, it's like, I'm willing to change my opinion on something and be like, I had that wrong. I was going in the wrong direction. I wasn't the way that I had viewed this previously. I don't view it the same anymore. And I'm willing to change my perspective on that. I know not everyone's that way. There'll be people that watch this that are probably like, my parents are like concrete. They're so mixed and set in their views and ideas and ways that they view the world. And you will never change their mind about it.
No, that's true. You know, if you could give me a logical argument as to why, then great. You know, where I kind of lean is, you know what, we might not agree on everything, but let's have a constructive conversation to understand what each
100%.
other's views are. And I'd rather understand your view and choose to agree with it or not agree with it, or at least be like, you know, that's an interesting angle. I'd never thought of that before.
Yeah.
Versus just being a stubborn bull and like, nah, I don't want to know anything about it.
Yeah, I understand where you're coming from. And I think there's a level of like, well, you came at me with information and statistics that are like, oh, that makes sense to me. I understand that. I don't view it that way, but I could understand how you could see that. Like I feel lucky enough, like my family drives me crazy, but one of the things in my family is like, we just love debate for the sake of debate.
See, I don't like that. I don't like to have just silly, illogical arguments.
But it's not illogical.
It gets there.
It can get there for sure. But I think we always joke that our family we could have had many lawyers in our family of just like, hey, we have no problem. And I don't consider it arguing. It drives Haven nuts.
Oh, I'm sure
she hates it. But for us, it's just like, no, we're discussing. And I always say it gives me the ability of, here's the problem. If you want to come at me with an opposing view of how I view the world or an opinion that I've given, you need to make sure that you come prepared, because I will warn you, for me, I've looked at and seen both sides for the most part. I'm not saying I know everything, but I've researched, well, how does the other side view this? What do they look at?
I will give you some sage advice.
Mm-hmm.
All right. And I've adopted this myself in the last couple of years.
This is a new chill, Scott.
It is, like, especially during like election season.
Oh, I'm out on that.
Because a lot of people will like not be friends with each other because of a political view or a religious view or whatever the case may be. So what I do now when I see conversations heading that way is I tell people, I say, hey, I'm happy to have this conversation so long as we're not sitting here trying to change each other's minds.
Perfect.
I'm open to have, if we can be mature and responsible about it, I'm open to having this discussion and hearing it, but we're not going to sit here and explain why the other's right or wrong or be upset about it. And then there was one woman that I said that to, older than me, and very political family and whatnot, and she was like, oh my God, I absolutely love that. Nobody's ever said that to me before. But it's like setting the expectation of, I'm willing to go down this rat's nest, but there's caveats. Like we're going to be friends when we're done with this conversation. We're not going to judge, and we're not going to sit here and try and convince the other that one is right, because we're never going to get there.
I agree with you on that, and that is my stance. Where a lot of that fuel comes from is, for me, I'm very protective of the message that I'm trying to share with people. And when I think people have been fed a load of bullshit, I'm very careful of how that's going to be carried about, because all it takes is one comment that takes off with everyone wanting to pile on it, or a few of them. And for me, it's like, I understand that you believe that. I understand that that's what you've been told, but it's like, I need you to at least be willing to. So I'm fully aware. I'm not going to change your mind. Nobody's ever been like, you know what? Nobody in a Facebook comment has been like, you know what? You make a shit ton of sense and I'm changing my mind. I don't think that occurs. I think it's just people trying to fling and sling shit at each other from both sides. And it's like, now we're both covered in it and nobody's really won anything here.
So this kind of leads into topic 3. We'll just kind of jump over the Chiefs for a
So we'll wait for the Chiefs. You guys are going to have to wait for that.
Let's hear about, I feel like this is a good segue into this chiropractic joint video deal.
So he was having some issues. He had been working out. He's like, my upper back had been tight. It had been bothering me. And so I wanted to go see a chiropractor. So we went to a place called The Joint. The Joint is a franchise that is
You can't pass judgment, right? Like
I can't, but I'll tell you the joint are chiropractic franchises that are owned by MDs.
Okay. So this is a budget chiropractic
sort of
franchise.
When you go in there, there is no x-rays. There's a minimal exam to make sure that it would be okay to adjust you, and then you're going to get adjusted. But it's not going to be by the same doctor every time. So this guy went in, tried to get adjusted. They couldn't really get anything moving, was the terms that he said. Of like, when they tried to adjust him, it was like he's really tight, couldn't get anything done, couldn't adjust his neck. So the description of the doctor was, next time we're just going to apply a little bit more force and we'll be able to get this thing moving. That should not ever be a word that needs to be stated when it's like, well, I'm just going to do this a little bit harder and that'll figure it out. So it goes back in.
And on the second time where he tried to crack my neck, he put a lot of force behind it, and I heard one huge and painful pop. I knew immediately that something was wrong. When the chiropractor tried to like sit me up and stuff, like the whole room was spinning. My equilibrium was just completely fucked. I was like instantly like profusely sweating, kind of like the sweat you get before you're about to throw up. Chiropractor gives me a kind of glass of water, and I just kind of have to lay down on the table for a while to kind of get myself together, which ended up taking about roughly like 30 additional minutes having to lay down after being adjusted just to kind of be good enough to walk out the door.
Basically, the guy had like they're saying that he caused a disc bulge in the guy's lower neck. I don't know if that's true. My guess would be that it was probably already there and he made it worse, potentially. Could he have caused that? It's totally possible. But it made it worse, caused numbness and all this to go down his arm. He was in pain all the time, had to go to the hospital, was in there for a few weeks, couldn't work, spent all his savings. Like it really sucked for this guy. And I hope something comes from this, because the person who runs that and the person who hired that doctor, they just wanted a body in there, and it's like, yeah, this guy will work. It's like, you have to cover your ass when it comes to that stuff. And like, that person was clearly not qualified in my mind to take care of them. With some simple ortho tests and some things that we could have looked at, we probably could have figured out that maybe this guy potentially has an issue that's going on, and I'm going to need to refer you to someone else in order to, before we could do anything. I had this happen one time. Red flag in school. Patient comes in holding their head like they can't support it and they feel like their head's going to fall off post some sort of accident. I had a lady in like my second year come in holding her head up, feels like her head's going to fall off. She was in a car accident. Took her through my full exam. And I said, I can't start care. She got mad at me. I was like, you can't come in here and be a patient of mine, start anything. I feel like there could potentially be some ligament instability that's going on there. And I was like, you have to get an MRI. And we have to get that clear before I'll do anything. But if I would have adjusted her and something that would have been...
She would have had her lawyers on you in 2 seconds.
100%. And we've had another one of our clinics that it was a whole issue with a baby. Parents were abusing the child, and then to pass it off, they took her into one of our doctors and they tested her and then tried to pass it off like she was the one that caused the problems just off of an exam. Like the kid's legs were broken. Here's my big issue with this I have to defend myself, not the joint, not even necessarily my profession, but it's like I watch people in the comments. I just canceled my appointment. I knew something, blah, blah, blah. This person caused this. This person caused this. This person caused somebody to have a stroke. Stroke is the most common thing that everyone's going to talk about. Oh, as a person who specializes in neck adjustments and only doing that, the amount of people that are freaked out by that, understandably, you want to protect your neck. I understand that. Do you know what the frequency is, if you had to guess? Per adjustment.
Frequency of it happening I mean, I got to imagine it's less than like 0.01%.
It is 1 in 5.8 million adjustments is how frequently that occurs.
So what you're saying is I'm right.
Basically, correct. I mean, I wouldn't disagree with you, is what I would say.
It's been documented. That's evidence. On our last episode, we talked a little bit, right? I kind of led you on a little on like the stigma of going to a chiropractor. Then this video comes up, kind of interesting that comes up at the same time. And there's other industries out there like that. The one I would say is probably most relatable is CrossFit. You do both. You do CrossFit and your chiropractor. So
I agree.
Yeah.
Because some of them do suck.
Yeah. So like it's with anything else. If you have a bad experience with one doctor, does that mean you never go back to doctors as a whole? If you eat a bad hamburger somewhere, you're never going to eat a hamburger again.
So you're bringing up my perfect example, because that
like,
makes no sense. oh, I went to a bad mechanic.
But
This
that's
dude
what-
screwed me over. I just let my car.
Service my car again.
Never.
Right? I'm just going to trade it.
I don't.
So there's that mentality, and look, I understand it. Like that's the knee jerk, but the reality is that we're not all created equal, even though we yearn for equality. And some of us are better at what we do than others, and some are specialized more in what we do than others. And everyone's got a purpose. And kind of like you said early on in our conversation, you got to sit there and do the research and figure it out. And maybe not so much of, I think the chiropractor is bad, I don't want to visit that person, I'm going to find other solutions. And I'll give you an example, right? So, Amy had a friend come down and just chronic. Like she was just complaining constantly about how things were going. And I said, I don't know if you're open to the idea, but, I've got a friend that, specializes in this type of treatment to help you with your migraines. And
He's talking about me, by the way.
Yeah, she adamantly refused. I'm never going. And I'm like, okay, right? Because, one of my mentors told me early on, a mind convinced against its own will is of the same opinion still. Like, we can't convince you. You've got to be
Philosophizer
there, right?
Scott over here.
Here we are. Let me get my pipe out, right?
I'm like, guys, by the way, did you see the beard's back? It's back.
At least for the week. We'll see what happens. For the week. So, I look at all that and I was like, all right, I'm not going to argue with this person. Like, she was living in pain. She was, seeing doctors, looking at surgeries, having surgeries, taking pills. And you know what? That's fine. Like, if that's the way you choose to treat your body, that's okay. Like, you get one body, you get to do with it what you want. You get to live with it too.
It is an approach.
Right? So it's, and just because the way I do it is one way or the way you do it's another, doesn't mean that either of those ways are right or wrong. It just means that that's your choice on how you're going to treat yourself, without going down the vaccine route. But I mean, it's pretty similar, right? You get the choice as to what you want to do.
You should get the choice.
Right. So, I kind of look at that there and I'm like, all right, well, she didn't want it. Well, Amy had another friend come down complaining about the same thing.
Oh, I didn't know it's a different friend. Got it. Okay,
Yeah,
so that one.
And I sat there and I was like, I wonder. I'm like, F it. Let's see how bad her pain really is. And she was fairly excruciating. Like, all kinds of, she shared everything with me.
Oh yeah, they were stacking. It was issues that were just stacking
And
on
I
top
was
of
like,
one another.
I'm not a big fan of pharmaceutical drugs personally, especially if there's other alternatives out there. I don't know what's in them. I don't like putting stuff in my system unless absolutely necessary. And I told her, like, hey, I got a friend. And again, it was him. And, the cool part was, I think I hit you up on like a Friday evening or Saturday morning. And, Brandon made time for them on the weekend.
On a
I
Sunday.
think it was a Sunday, and they went down, and Brandon took them through the whole thing. And I kind of set their expectation a little bit, like, just like Brandon said, like, I'm like, don't expect him to do an adjustment right away. He has X-rays. He makes sure that they're reviewed by another party before, even trusting his own judgment fully, so that you got that kind of reinforcement and figuring out what the treatment path is. And I guess they were down there for about an hour or so, and it worked out pretty well. Like, she was like, oh my God, like, I feel amazing. I've never had this clarity. Like, all the things that, he'll tell you about on his TikTok channel and everywhere else, if you're at that point where you have nowhere else to turn, that's where his stuff comes into play nicely. If you're just kind of starting to experience it and you see all the stuff that, Brandon's talking about online with these different, chiropractors and so forth, then yeah, I mean, I can understand why you might try taking pills and everything else, but like you said, once you start compounding that stuff, I mean, who the heck knows what kind of havoc that's wreaking on the system. You've all got to make your own decisions, right? And for me, like, the less chemical I could put in my body, and I mean, this didn't happen by accident, all right? This was very intentional. So, the less chemical you put in your body, and the more, you could avoid getting cut open. I mean, I would try everything before having to go through anything like that.
I think, and I'll be honest with that, I used to come from a place, I'm like, if you don't do this, the hell are you thinking? Like, doing any of this other stuff doesn't make any sense.
It's not our opinion, right? All we could do is educate, and all they could do is retain the information, and like you said, it either is in line with what they're looking for, or it's not.
Yep.
And that, and that's, again, it's like you're not going to convince them otherwise.
And I remember whenever she left, it was hilarious because I could hear them talking down the hallway, and she was like, "Oh my gosh, this is crazy! Like I haven't felt like this."
She came back down.
I mean, she just came down a couple weeks ago. Yeah.
And again, like I had a similar thing. I had issues with my feet. Like I thought it was plantar fasciitis. It was really bad. And I've got
that's right.
And I've got another friend who's a chiropractor that does this soft wave therapy. So I kind of like that. He's done it on my sinuses, like just the relief I get. It's like really good. So I go to see him, and he's like, "All right, let's give this a shot." And when he was doing the treatment, which is it's topical, like there's nothing invasive other than sound waves. I mean, I had him do other parts of my body, no issues. My feet. My gosh, that first treatment, I thought my toes were going to shoot out the front and my heel out. I mean, it was excruciating.
Yeah.
But I didn't want to take drugs. I was willing to endure that to try and get the healing and the repair to not take the drugs. Then it was like 5 treatments. And it helped it a lot. And I went to non-solicited advertisement. I went to Fleet Feet, which used to be Run On.
Yeah.
And they'll do like a scan of your foot
to see.
So you can figure out what type of sole you need. Like even there's a lot to sneakers more than just the style and the cool colors and stuff like that.
Yep. Functionality.
So I learned a lot about it, and I started making the adjustments, and then I had a problem again. And I'm like, shit. And it's like literally I went to like an aerobics class with Amy, and it was a little bouncy jumping up and down, all that BS. And I tweaked it. Like I effing tweaked it. Like I used to do jumping jacks, no problem. Now it's I got to be careful how I land on my foot because I'm just that freaking old, right?
Right.
And it was like, oh,
or we can just strengthen your foot. It's fine.
And
we'll get him that guy.
And it hurt like really, really bad. And I'm like to the point where I knew if he put the soft wave on there, I was just probably gonna black out. I mean, it was excruciating to the point that I got on crutches. It hurt so bad.
Is this when you came and saw me?
No. So I actually went to a podiatrist.
Okay.
Because I'm like, all right. I don't know what the hell's going on, but I had like a little. Yeah, it is when I saw you.
Yeah, I was about to say because we looked at
the X-ray, and then I went to the podiatrist and they checked it out, and I had this little tiny hair follicle of a bone spur on the back of my heel.
Yep.
And what he said was happening was the Achilles was getting over tensed because of that. It's like that rubber band goes whoop, little out, and it starts pulling the feet, and it starts pulling the like everything was just bad. And the night prior to going to see that doctor, I mean, it was just like throbbing, hurting bad. And Amy had this prescription for meloxicam. And I had taken one earlier in the week and did nothing. But then I'm like, well, Amy's like half my size. Maybe I need to take 2. I took 2, and like the next morning, I'm like, I could walk without crutches. This was like, holy shit.
Yeah.
So I go to the doctor and I explained what had been happening and what I had done, and he checked it out and scoped it and was like, look, he goes, I don't really want to have to cut you open. And he goes, there's no need to go in there to shave this. He goes, it could work itself out.
Right.
He's like, I know you don't like the drugs. He goes, but if you go on this meloxicam for like 2 weeks and just function as normal.
Try to get you back, yeah.
This thing, it's like 2 pieces of wood. You rub them against each other long enough, they'll start to smooth out. He goes, and it will work itself out. And then he gave me stretches. I do the stretches. Some days, I don't pull nothing. Some days, it's like, oh my God, it's a lot worse than I thought it was.
Mm-hmm.
And I think one of the triggers for me, unfortunately, is alcohol. So if I have a glass of wine, or like last night we had some sake, it was like, last night, by the time I got home, I could feel it. And I stretched them, and it was super. I think it's creating an inflammatory response.
Do you get anything that travels up the leg, or does it only stay in the foot?
It's usually in the foot.
Nothing that, even when you're stretching, that you feel?
When I stretch, it's like, if it's hurting here, my calves are usually excruciating.
The hamstrings too, or just calves?
The hamstrings are always tight.
Okay. We'll work on them after this. I already have some ideas in my mind.
Episode 4.
No, I think that's right. That nobody wants, or everyone wants to talk about because it's all over the internet. I think to close that out, here's the thing, is I said the ridiculous thing of like, oh, you had a bad mechanic experience, and you're like, I just let my car literally till it can't drive anymore, and then I just leave it and I go get another one. That would never be the approach. You go have a bad experience at a restaurant, you're like, I don't go to restaurants.
It's logic and it's illogical, and everyone's got their reasons.
Did you know that in 1987, chiropractors actually sued the American Medical Association for a propaganda scheme that they had basically put together to take down the chiropractic profession.
I didn't know, and I'm not surprised.
And they won because it was true. When you sit there, because I have patients ask this all the time, well, how come whenever I ask my doc, they wouldn't say anything about this? And I'm like, do I really have to say it? I mean, do I really have to tell you why keeping you on the hamster wheel is good for them and okay for you? Listen, you get to view that however you want. Anyways, I know we are only a few episodes into this podcast, and it's hard to believe, but we have actually already got a sponsorship, so I need to shout them out real quick. The first one is this cool company. They're called Etches. I gave you a new tagline. It's called, "Hey, you should give us a shot."
That's my gimmick. Come on now. See, I give people those and I say, thanks for giving us a shot.
See, as if we're not. So Etches, of course, sponsors this podcast. And then these cool people over at the specific chiropractic centers have also sponsored this podcast. So make sure that you guys, follow, check out our sponsors. We really love and appreciate them. And we want to make sure that you guys do too. They're actually here on my koozie that I still always use. And I love giving these things out. We still have like a billion of these with the old podcast logo on the bottom. It's my favorite. The Chiefs. So do you know anything about any of this? Are you going to watch today? I mean, the first game's in like an hour. I can't wait to watch.
Yeah, I'm sure it'll be on at the house. The
Chiefs are the new Patriots. Do you remember when everyone hated Tom Brady and the Patriots? Because they win. Dallas used to be that way. We won't be that way for a long time. In the 90s. Shut up. Did you see who they hired as their new coach?
The inside guy? What's his name?
Brian Schottenheimer?
Yeah,
the offensive coordinator.
True, so they hired him.
Yeah.
Okay.
That every team that he's been on, he's basically wrecked offenses, never really done anything. Why is this the guy?
Maybe they just want to see how bad they could be.
I have not bought anything this basically entire season. I was like, y'all are pissing me off. I'm done. I don't even want to, I would love to go to a game, but I cannot support a franchise that I feel like legitimately doesn't give a shit about me as a fan. We're not trying to make any moves. I mean, maybe they didn't like him, but Robert Saleh, who did a pretty damn good job with the Jets, was still out and available. There were still lots of other options that other teams were trying to get.
Dude,
we just go, no, we're just going to hire from within.
You know what? There's no telling.
And if that guy does something, we'll just stamp this right now, and I could be wrong. And I would love to be wrong, but I don't think it's going to happen.
There's just no telling.
I'm predicting a mediocre season.
Everybody else can really suck next year, and they can make the Cowboys.
Not a chance. Everyone else is getting so much better. The Washington Commanders broke their streak of not going to at least an NFC championship. They're in the NFC championship today with a rookie quarterback.
So who are the Chiefs playing today?
The Chiefs are playing the Bills again.
Okay. That'll be a good game.
Hella good game. And here's the thing. It's the Eagles versus the Commanders. It's two teams that are in our conference playing one another in the NFC championship.
There's a rivalry out there.
I can't even really have a team to support. I hate both of them. They're in our conference.
I mean, is this going to be like a Eagles-Bills? I'm going to go off on an Eagles-Bills. I mean, what if today's...
Eagles-Bills would be cool. I think Commanders-Bills would be cooler, but I don't think that's what we're going to get.
The Chiefs get upset today?
The Chiefs are the new Patriots. Everyone hates them. This was the whole Deflategate with the Patriots, all these things happening. I know there's a lot to the conspiracy of that, of some of this is bull, and it's they might have been doing it, but then you see all this stuff come out, and coaches that aren't coaching anymore are we're all trying to do shit to give us an edge. We're all trying to have something that we're doing in order to give us just a little bit of an edge. Mm-hmm. There's the whole untold story on Netflix about the Michigan guy that was he was one of the guys that would stand on the sideline, and he would watch the other team's play calling, and he goes, it's pretty easy to figure out pretty quickly what they're calling. And so I would figure it out and be like, hey, and they'd call it out to the defense. And then they were so Michigan with Harbaugh, they were killing teams. It's yeah, they had a guy on the sideline that was figuring out what teams were calling. Yeah. If you ain't cheating, you ain't trying. I had a high school basketball coach that told me that. I was like, Coach, so would you say that I should do this? And he's like, I'm not telling you that you should ever do any of that. I will say this. If you ain't cheating, you ain't trying. And when you talk about the money that's involved, all the stakes that are involved, there's going to be some bullshit that goes on in there. I also think there's some bullshit that happens now that gambling is becoming so illegal. There was a play that happened where I think it was the Chiefs needed to win by more than 9 in order for it to pay out. And all the Chiefs needed to do was take a knee and the game's over. And they took a snap with a punt, ran back into the end zone, and then out the side, which was a 2-point, which then made the gap 7 points instead of 9 points. And that like literally shifted everything for all the gambling. And I'm like, that's kind of interesting.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think Mahomes is a damn good quarterback. I think he's...
Oh, the stat I'm going to tell you shows you he's literally probably one of the best of all time.
I saw him play the Super Bowl I went to.
Oh, that's right. When you went to that was the Eagles one, right?
You know, it was 49ers. And
that was the Niners and Chiefs.
And
because basically it's been the Niners or the Eagles who go.
The Chiefs were down. It was like a Brady comeback, a Jeter comeback. I mean, it was...
Always is.
He was clutch, man. And he pulled off an amazing upset. And... at least then, I don't think they cheated to get it.
No, I don't think there's any cheating with that.
They were just a superior team. Like, even when you watch the Patriots from, back in the day when Brady was there and they were awesome. And, when that team got just behind a little bit, it lit a fire that couldn't be put out, man.
Big time.
And I think that Chiefs organization right now has that similar deal going.
Here's what's happening with the Chiefs and the narrative in the NFL right now, which is crazy because the NFL is basically a grouping of 32 establishments that are like, imagine you're one of these people and everyone gets together and it's like, all right, guys, we're giving it to the Chiefs again this year. They're the ones, and you're just going to be like, okay, yeah, that's cool. Like, to think that programs are just going to be like, oh yeah, it's them. This is how we're doing it. This is how the narrative is going to twist. Sports is sports. Anything can happen. Mm-hmm. But right now the narrative is like literally the Chiefs do nothing but give, or the refs give nothing but the Chiefs great calls. Here's what's happened. Mahomes, as you talked about, is an amazing quarterback. Mm-hmm. Mahomes, just like the Patriots used to do, they figure out a way to stretch the rules or a way that there's a loophole in the rules. And they're like, oh, hey, if we do this play this way and we establish that this player is eligible or something like that, it gives us an advantage here. And Belichick's smart and knows how to do that. Well, Mahomes knows that quarterbacks are really protected right now. So one of his go-to moves now is he's like, oh, I'm running out of bounds. Like, I'm running with you. I'm going to run to get the first down. I'm running out of bounds. So the defenders let up. And then as soon as they do that, he turns it on and cuts up the sideline.
There's nothing illegal about that.
There's nothing illegal about that. But it's tough. So everyone this game,
psychology game.
Everyone this game is like the Bills have to just the first time he does it, just light him up. Take the 15-yard penalty, but be like, we're not letting you do that. We will take the penalty every time.
And that's not going to be an unnecessary roughness call, right?
No, it will be. It would be
tackling them on the way out.
Yeah, because they're out of bounds. You hit them out of bounds already. So it's like if it's close, they might let it go. Because roughing the passer is another one that they're like, Mahomes gets them. Well, statistics show that Josh Allen actually gets more than Mahomes does. But Mahomes, this last game, he was going out of bounds and they shoved him and he flopped. Like, everyone knows about the LeBron flop. Players flop.
This is still media, man. Like, they're still controlling the
happens. But the narrative all over Twitter, all over TikTok is like, Chiefs put out their new jerseys for today, and it's like ref. It's like a ref uniform for these. But like, this goes back to the point. The truth that you're looking for is there. Everyone hates us. I'm a Steelers fan. I'm a whatever fan. And it's like, there's nothing that we can do about it. It's like, there is something that you can do about it. You know what you could do? Be better than them. Yeah. Beat them at their own game. It's the classic, they hate us because they hate us. Like, I don't know what else to tell you. Because they're on the AFC instead of the NFC, and like the Cowboys have literally never been affected by them because we don't have to go. It's like, I get it. That would suck. They're going for a three-peat. It's never been done in the modern era. Yeah. Lots of teams have tried. Cowboys were there, lost. You want to talk about the Cowboys' demise? As soon as we let Jimmy Johnson go, it was over. We were doomed. It's the curse of the great Bambino, where we're the same. As soon as they did that to Jimmy, it was like, we're screwed. Patriots tried to do it. The Giants said, hold Eli Manning's beer and watch this. A 10-7 team beats an almost undefeated team. So it's never happened. So naturally, when you're at the top, where else are you going to go? There's nobody else up here, so everyone's going to be pulling down on you, and it's like...
It's just a narrative. Like, who cares, right? I mean, like when the Yankees were crushing it back in the late 90s, they were untouchable. And you know what? It was fun to watch. And people outside of New York...
That's what I like.
People outside of New York didn't want to hear it, didn't want to see it.
It's the same with Patriots.
Team, and when the Red Sox finally broke the curse, and when the Cubbies went and won, I mean, it's like, that's just good for the sport, man. Like, I think that's... If they're that superior of a team and everyone's making moves in the offseason to get ahead and nobody is, the team that set the bar keeps moving it higher.
100%.
And it's not going to be a play that makes this thing go that's just like, oh my God, like he did this little stupid drill thing and he tricked the guy, right?
But that's what
someone's
people
going to make a
on.
mistake, man, and that's like it's going to be like the ball slips through, like whatever. It's a fumble. It's something that was unintentional. It's going to change the way a game is going to happen, or somebody gets injured and they're out, and now that's a clutch part of what the plan was. I mean, there's no way to control that.
Costly turnover, something happens.
I'm not a big fan of the sports betting, and I agree that some conspiracy
it could have some,
definitely comes out of that. And just because these guys aren't necessarily betting on it doesn't mean that they're not being influenced by sponsors and others.
Stuff has come out back in the day with sports where a guy was in bad shape with somebody, and it's like, hey, you're gonna be shaving points. Like
Ruby Rose, right?
Yeah.
I mean, like, and he got banned. So, there's no telling. I mean, I'm not a fan of gambling in general. Like, it's just my thing. Like, work hard for the money, and I don't look at that as like an earning potential.
way you want to put it, yeah.
But for some people, that's their vice, and I'm okay with that. I mean, it's what it is. The people win less. The house wins very, very consistently.
Half the people are going to win, half the people are going to lose, and then it's like, oh, this is
if
how
I were into gambling, it'd be because I own the casino or I own the sports bet, the book.
100%.
I wouldn't be the guy sitting there thinking I'm going to win on the horse. It's just not how I function. But some people are really good at it. Some people can really pick
So, hey, some people have a knack for it. Here's the thing. We'll close out the episode with this. Predictions. This has just been sitting with me the whole time. So the first one I'm going to throw out is Bills by 3. I just get this feeling.
Okay.
Patrick Mahomes has beaten Josh Allen at different stages of the playoffs 3 times in a row. Pat has lost to Josh multiple times. They always beat them during the season.
Mm-hmm.
But when it matters postseason, they never get them. This guy was talking about there's always like a last drive, last clutch play. That's always the thing that's the thing that determines the outcome of the game. It's close. One of the guys gets the ball. This is what they do. And he's like, in history, there was like 152 plays where this has happened. And he goes, Tom Brady's statistics on this is like, I think it was like 6. I think it was high. I think his was like 7 out of 12 or like 6 out of something like that. His was like 40 something % that he's done on those plays. Like he has a 40% chance if he can do that. Mm-hmm. Drew Brees, 50-50. He's 3 out of 6. So 6 times he's had to have that happen. 3 times he's done it. 3 times he has not. Patrick Mahomes in those situations is 7 for 7. He is 100%.
I'll tell you what, I would really like to see Bills and the Eagles.
You think they do? I could see it.
I think they do.
I think the 3-peat's cool.
I think they're strong. I think this is going to be a very good game, and I think they're going to bring it.
Can't bet
And I
against
think
the guy.
even if they get a little tired, they're going to bring it on even stronger. I mean, Chiefs are a solid football club, man.
You got Andy Reid. You got Patrick Mahomes. You got Travis Kelce. You have Chris Jones, one of the best defense. They have it where they need it. Unfortunately,
because everyone else has swapped out over the years.
And then, listen, the Bills are great. If they get it, I would love it. So I got Bills. Scott's got Chiefs.
Being a non-sports fan, I'm happy with whatever happens.
So now, Commanders versus Eagles. Who you got?
Eagles.
Interesting.
Yeah, for sure.
Any reason why, or just like, hey, I'm picking the Eagles?
I think they're a way stronger team than the Commanders.
It's very true. This is very true.
Historically and currently.
I'm going to tell you exactly why I'm picking the Commanders.
Because I picked the Eagles?
No. Not to be...
Because he likes to debate?
No, not to... Sure. Not to be opposed. First of all, screw the Eagles. Any teams can't pick them. But unfortunately, I'm handcuffed on both sides. But I figured out my loophole. Do you want to know my loophole?
Here are the facts, eh?
Here are the facts, you see. So, first of all, the Commanders are on a crazy streak. To see a rookie quarterback go to the Super Bowl, never been done. It'd be crazy. But my main reason for why I'm picking the Commanders is because them mofos are built off of the Dallas Cowboys back.
What does that mean?
Dan Quinn. He's their head coach.
Okay.
He was a defensive coordinator of our team a couple of years ago. Could have hired the guy. Didn't. Stupid. We can just let that one go. That was a mistake. Let him go.
Eagles.
And he's taken a rookie quarterback. When Dan Quinn left, we lost 8 guys, 8 players that we developed and turned into who they are. And those mofos are now flipping starters, most of them, for the Commanders. Their center, linebacker,
okay,
2 of their defensive tackles or defensive ends. There's multiple guys that we developed that these mofos now have, Is that a narrative that's ever pushed? Hey, the Cowboys built these guys. Look what they're doing now for the Commanders. No, they ain't going to talk about that.
Nope.
Have you watched?
No, I haven't. I haven't watched any football.
Jaden, he's the most frustrating. You know when, you probably don't because you don't watch like this.
Are both games tonight or? Yeah.
No, like one's at 2 and one's at 5.
So
I think
both games are
5:30.
tonight. Okay.
Well, both games are today. Have you ever watched a player that, like, when they play in football, it's like you just want somebody to, like, somebody just needs to light that dude up. Like, somebody needs to hit him. And then some guys are just so elusive. It's like it's like Barry Sanders. Nobody ever really gets him. They just, like, he, like, couldn't get out of that when you grabbed him by a shoestring. You got him down. Jaden Daniels, he is, like, the skinniest quarterback that he's probably, like, 190 pounds if he's lucky, maybe even less. This little twig of a thing that you're like, everyone when he got drafted, that kid's going to get hurt. And he did. He had a rib problem. He got lit up a couple times. He just has this ability of, like, I can run really fast, but I'm only going to run as fast as I need to. And in the beginning, I'm going to kind of lull you to sleep. And then you're just not going to be able to catch me. Or I'm not going to go down.
So it's the same thing Mahomes is pulling.
Correct. But he's just better at it. It's infuriating.
It doesn't look intentional.
Also, I want to pick the Commanders because the Commanders had a really tough game. They have an amazing quarterback that did so good, and the only team that really gave him trouble this year was the Dallas Cowboys. So whatever I got to do to give the boys a shout out here.
So stay tuned for the next episode. Maybe between now and then, Trump will rename the Commanders the Redskins. And
who knows?
We'll call it a wrap, you know?
So drop your predictions in the comments, and we'll see you guys later.
Well, considering it's happening today, you can tell us what happened in the comments.
Oh shit, that's true.
Tell us how wrong we are or how right I was.